Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to the Byrne Bright podcast. My guest today is Ruben, a molecular biologist, a comedian, author, and a familiar face on the Science Channel. He holds a PhD from Johns Hopkins University, teaches a stand-up comedy class there, and has spent over 20 years figuring out how to make science funny. In this episode, we get into the craft of comedy, how to tailor humour to different audiences and settings, and how storytelling and comedy can be a powerful vehicle for revisiting and making sense of the harder moments in life. One that I thoroughly enjoyed. And with that, here is my conversation with Ruben. When I found out that I was coming to DC, I literally typed in to Google, interesting people in DC area, science comedy.
It's probably the science comedy part that got my website, not the interesting people part. But science comedy, that really narrows it down too. That's the thing. It's a weird niche. Like there aren't that many science comedians.
No, and that's why it sort of stood out, because it's science communicator and using comedy to communicate science, I guess. And there's only a very small handful of people who I've come across with that sort of adage, I guess, to them. One is Professor Dave Explains. Do you know him?
No.
Oh, he's brilliant. I think he first started off just genuinely trying to do lessons for, I think it was a certain age group of kids online. Mm-hmm. And then he sort of diverted into the area of debating conspiracy theorists, flat earthers, and just kind of going in on them on a debate online. And that caught traction in a kind of a comical way. Yeah. So I think he unintentionally diverted into the, I guess you could say, the comedy science communication realm. Mm-hmm. And he's built up a huge following now. And there's another guy, what's his name? Have you ever seen Star Talk?
Oh yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah. And his name is escaping me. The guy that he has on, I can't remember his name. It'll come to me in a minute, but he's also he's a comedian, but he also kind of communicates science as well. His name will come to me in a second. Anyway, there's only a handful of people in this area. Yeah. So and how do you sort of find yourself in that area? Is it sort of a way that you, by accident, these things come together, or is it?
It's a good. I mean, I feel like they're just two separate interests that I've always had, and when I was first starting out at both of them, I tried to deliberately not combine them. I kind of thought like, well, if I'm becoming a science comedian, that's a cop-out. That's the easy path toward, I ought to be able to succeed as a scientist without communication skills. I ought to be able to succeed as a comedian without using my science. And that was the wrong choice, because, when you're actually trying to get work in comedy, you need a niche. Yes, in theory, it'd be wonderful if you can succeed as a comedian with your other job being completely irrelevant to it. Mm-hmm. But that's not using the tools in your arsenal. So at some point, I decided to combine them. I also, when I was starting out doing comedy, a lot of it was at these weird, bad open mic nights in Baltimore. So sure. On like a Thursday night, I would go to downtown Baltimore, and there'd be this place called Winchester's, not there anymore, and Winchester's had like open mic night, 30 comedians, 5 audience members, everyone was drunk. It was just, and telling science jokes on that stage is not going to work. So I was kind of trying to succeed in that environment so I could get invited to host a weekend at Winchester's.
Sure.
Which, in the meantime, kind of ignoring the fact that there aren't that many science comedians, and maybe it's not a bad idea to try to be one.
I think it's a ballsy route to take, because it's not the first thing that comes into your head when you're like, I'm coming to this place where everyone's out to have a good time and to enjoy themselves and to kind of have maybe superficial jokes thrown at them. It's like, do I really double down here? And
I wouldn't go that far that people were going to Winchester's to have a good time.
okay,
I never figured out why people were there. Honestly, if
have some sort of a time, I guess.
yeah, if it's 11:30 on a Thursday and you're
Mhm.
upstairs in Winchester's, I'm assuming that the 5 people in the audience were probably friends of a couple of the comedians or something.
Sure.
I brought some of my friends from grad school to watch once, and you know, it's the same sort of, it's the kind of grind you do when you're starting out as a comedian, that
Mhm.
where there are open mics, and there are lots of open mics all the time. However many of them you do is really up to the amount of time you have available and if you have a car.
Gotcha.
There are websites now that list, for example, all the open mic shows in DC, Baltimore, this area, and you could do one every single night of the week.
Sure.
But it only makes sense to do that if you're getting something out of it, if you like it, if you're learning from it still, if you're meeting people, making connections, all the things that are great to do.
Yeah,
But
sure.
now that I've got kids, things I don't have time to do.
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you start off with one sort of, I guess, motivation. Some people just want to go and try it out, have a good time. Maybe, I guess you get some free drinks sometimes when you're starting off as a comic, when you're not a paid comic or whatever.
Yeah, that was my first payment was hosting a weekend at Winchester's, and they said no money, but we will give you free drinks. I'm like, I drove here, but hey, the fact that you're inviting me to do comedy, that's my first big win.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just you, I guess the goalposts keep moving as you go along, but it's, if you can just get some sort of acknowledgement even by the club to ask you to come along, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're not going into it thinking that you need to get really far initially, and everything then it is kind of a bonus as it comes.
Yeah, it's I mean, so I teach stand-up comedy to students, and I had someone ask me once, like, do you think anyone can become a stand-up comedian? Because the students in my class, they're not comedians. They're like, I asked them on the first day, raise your hand if you've done stand-up before. No hands go up. I asked that question, so the rest of them aren't intimidated. But you know, someone said, do you think anyone could be a good stand-up comedian? And I think the answer, honestly, is probably no. But I do think that anyone can do a good 5 minutes. And that's what I tell my students. Like, don't focus on making this the first step in a career. Focus on 3 weeks from now doing a good 5 minutes in front of the, you know, in the auditorium in front of the other students.
Sure.
That's the goal, and you can achieve that and work on that now. And they're always scared, and they always do it, and they do a great job.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess some of them have the thought that I need to be funny right away, but it's, you're saying you need to get comfortable with just being up there, to be present up there and deliver something. It doesn't necessarily need to be funny.
I mean,
Get comfortable being.
You become more comfortable if it is funny.
Yeah.
Like if no one's laughing, you're fairly uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, one thing I tell them also is, I've heard the advice that when you're just starting out, getting comfortable is the goal. So don't even write your own jokes, just use somebody else's jokes. And I tell my students, like, I don't agree with that. Like, the whole point is that you are the performer and the playwright. It's something that's true to you, something that's unique to you.
Sure.
That's the creative part. That's the fun of it. And if you were just taking the tiny step of performing somebody else's joke on stage, that's not really enough of an accomplishment.
Okay. So it all needs to kind of come from you, because you're
Yeah. And I ask my students, like, we do some exercises of, think of what is something that's unique about you that is not true about most people. And over the years, I've had, you know, students say, well, my family owned the only Chinese restaurant in our tiny town in Kentucky. Or one guy said, I came back to college after working, I'm 30 and all the other students are 20. And these are all things we're like, that's great. Talk about, or one student couldn't think of anything, said, I work in the ice cream shop that's in town. Like, that's great. That's something, because everybody wants to hear about specialized knowledge. They want to hear and that's every nonfiction article or book too. I took a long time to learn about something. Here I am to tell you the most interesting 1%. And so that's what you do on stage too. You think, I'm I work at this ice cream shop. I'm going to tell you stories about the wacky things that happen working at an ice cream shop. I'm a scientist. I'm going to tell you about science.
Sure.
I had a student who had, he sort of confided in us in one of the first days. He said that he's had sort of a mental breakdown. And he asked, should I talk about that on stage? And we said, if you want to, sure. And he ended up talking about it, honestly, in a stand-up comedy context, and sort of making fun of himself for something he was clearly past,
Sure.
and that wasn't still raw for him, but something that was still real and important to him. And the audience is going to remember that a lot more than they're going to remember the 50th joke about driving.
Sure.
Or you know, I had one year that was all male and it was just genitals jokes. And I had to tell them at some point, like, guys, you're allowed to talk about this stuff, but
drop the dicks.
yeah, think about whether it's in your best interest to only talk about that.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no, that's interesting. You're saying that he brought up something that was very personal and close to him and hits home, very serious subject.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a way that, I guess that's why some people do get into comedy, because it's a way for them to sort of, I guess, not deflect, but to unpackage things in a humorous way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like therapy almost for him. He was able to get on a stage in front of a lot of people and get this out there, even though he's getting it out in a funny way. The audience are connecting with it on an emotional level as well.
Yeah.
It probably feels great afterwards. And
so another example of that, there's a theater series that I helped produce called Mortified, where adults read their childhood diaries on stage. Diaries, short stories, love letters, whatever they've created as kids, and it's so very cathartic. And I'm not one of the national producers of Mortified. It's just to be clear, there are lots of different chapters.
Sure.
I'm one of the lead producers of DC and Baltimore, but there are chapters all over the country, and I think there's even one in Dublin and one in London.
Okay.
And when people bring something in to possibly read it on stage, it's something they wrote never intending to read it in public, and something that their adult self kind of feels like they're winking at their childhood self, saying, hey, remember this thing where you felt so amazing or so terrible or whatever that one night, and now here you are 20 years, 30 years later, looking at it, and you can laugh at it with other people.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
That's brilliant. I never heard of that sort of format, but it's great because you get to kind of relive it, as opposed to, I guess it's nostalgic if you're just on your own reading it, but on a stage in front of a load of people, you can kind of bring joy to them, and at the same time you can bring yourself back to that moment. So that's the whole premise of it. It's just bringing stuff up. So people might bring a diary that they had as a kid and read it out on the stage.
Yes, but not sort of, it's not like an open mic. So they bring their material to us,
Okay.
and we curate it. We sort of sit with them. We say, let's read through some of it with you. Tell me the funniest parts. Tell me what you were like as a kid. What did you want? And so we help them then kind of shape the funniest 10 minutes with sort of an intro and an outro to frame it. We cut down, we edit, we never add.
Okay.
So it's all 100% the original material, but if you have a 300-page diary, you're only reading us 10 minutes that might skip around a little bit.
Gotcha.
And we've had people bring very, very massive things, and we're like, let's just find one thread. Okay, when you were at summer camp, you really like this boy, and there's a whole series of your exploits for a few weeks. Let's focus on that, and that ought to be, and you can always come back and tell us one of your other stories.
Okay. So you extract what you think is appropriate or something that they can hook the audience in with without having to go through everything.
Exactly. And we work with them. Like no one presents anything that they don't want to present or that they're not comfortable with. And people come to us because they want to do this. And then, we get maybe 5 or 6 people in a show. We just had our Valentine's shows. And it's a lot of fun. It's really, it's primarily a comedy show, but there's a lot of emotion too. When people are talking about things that are tremendously sad that they experienced as kids, but from a kid's lens, and so now we can kind of chuckle at how naive they were at thinking the world ended.
Sure.
This person didn't look at me today. My life is over. And in the last Mortified show, I read this thing that I wrote when I was at my lowest point in high school. It was 10th grade. I had no friends. I I promised myself that I'm going to pull myself out of the social slump and I'm going to have a date for homecoming. I've never had a date before. This is going to be my first date. And then homecoming night, I did not have a date, and so I didn't go to the dance, and I went to dinner with my parents. And after that, I came home, and it was like even my sister, who was 3 years younger than me, was out with friends, and I was just there alone in my basement. And so I just started typing this manifesto of self-pity. And so that's one of the things that I shared on stage at Mortified, reading from something that was really meant to just be for me to work out these feelings of loneliness.
Yep.
And then kind of,
Little did you know back then that this was going to be material in the future. So
yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's kind of poetic in a way. And what age were you then when you wrote that?
I was 15.
15. Fair play. That's a fairly vulnerable thing to do when you're 15 if you're going through that sort of feeling.
It was, it was really just like, why does nobody like me kind of stuff. And, but I meant it and I did it to process it. And then now when I read it on stage, I think people are thinking, of when they themselves felt that feeling as a kid.
Sure.
Because you feel like it's everything. And that's what we see in all the diaries people bring to us. It's always, when you're a kid, everything is the most important thing ever.
It's the best thing that happened, the worst thing that happened.
Yeah, you have no perspective yet.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're absolutely in love with the things you're obsessed with, and all the setbacks are so tremendous. My daughter's 14. I'm kind of seeing some of that in her and the things she's experiencing. And I bring her to Mortified shows, partly to show her, like, hey, by the way, you can see that all these people survived being a teenager, so it's okay.
So it serves multiple purposes, I think, the whole Mortified thing.
Yeah. And also because I feel like as a kid, my parents never brought me to see live theater that much. Like I would see theater shows if there's a school field trip to see a children's play or something. But just going out to live theater on the weekend, it wasn't really something that I experienced. And now having done stand-up and shows like Mortified, it's kind of second nature. And so I really want my kids, if they're interested, to have an opportunity to just see, like, this is what goes into a show. Here's what it's like backstage. This is the reality of live performance.
Great. And are you encouraging them to then step in to do that themselves?
Only if they want to.
Yeah.
So my daughter's interested in theater. She was in the school play this fall, and she's taking an improv class on the weekends now. So she really likes it. The younger two kids, so I've got a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Okay.
And my 11-year-old is starting to get into theater. He is was going to audition for the school play in the fall, changed his mind at the last minute, but now he wants to audition for the school play in the spring, so that's good. Nice. The younger one is 5, so who knows?
Okay. Fair. Nice. No, but that's good. You said that you brought your eldest child, 14, to the Mortified shows, because she's going through that phase now, as you said, where everything is either the worst or the best thing.
Yeah.
So when she's able to see what people that have been her age, that have gone through those things, they've survived it, they've come through it, and they're able to kind of make sort of light of it now.
Yeah.
And they've come through it. I know as a 14 or 15-year-old, they might look at that and say, how can you make light of this? It's the worst thing ever. But it can serve multiple purposes, I think, that sort of format of media. There's always a depth, I think, to these things. Like, say, with comedy and with everything else, there's layers to it, if you want there to be layers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I still I do comedy, because I like, there's just something about a live performance that you can't replicate anywhere else. Something about being in the room, which was why COVID was so tough. Well, one of the many reasons COVID was tough. When COVID started, I had a 3rd grader, a kindergartner, and then a newborn. So we were, with the newborn especially, when it started, my wife was 7 months pregnant, and the newborn, 2 months later. And so we were really, restrictive on what we allowed ourselves to go do. People were saying, oh, we have to wear masks at the supermarket. And we were like, you go to the supermarket? we are Instacart, and I put on a mask when I spray the groceries with isopropyl. I think we all remember those early days, and but everything disappeared overnight. All the shows, all the live theater, all the live anything, and that was really hard because even now, what is it, 6-ish years later, things haven't completely bounced back.
No, there's a new sort of form, but it's not exactly the way it was before.
Right, and just audiences are a little smaller than they used to be. It's taken time. They're growing back, but it's not quite like it was pre-pandemic.
Sure.
And during the pandemic, we did some online comedy shows, and those were, everyone sort of agreed this was the most we could do, and that's why people did them. And then even that wasn't enough, and we just stopped doing them. It's just not a good format. The class that I teach, they did their final show as virtual. It was just
didn't hit the same way.
No, and you couldn't expect it to, because when you're watching something on a screen alone in your house, it's very different than being in an auditorium with hundreds of people or whatever, just trying to, experiencing something that you can only really truly experience if you're in that room at that time.
Sure. Yeah, you can't replicate it. I remember there was a couple of comedians listening to a podcast, and there was a few comedians saying that they did, I think, drive-through or drive-in comedy, where everyone would drive in their cars and the comedian would be up on the stage, but it would just be all these cars in a parking lot. I was like, that's kind of interesting, but it just feels strange. Just watching a lot of people in their cars.
But everything felt strange. Everything was just, we do this not because it's good, but we do this because it's better than nothing. It's like the same reason I started jogging at one point during COVID. Not because all I needed to start jogging was for jogging to be the most interesting part of my day instead of the least interesting part of my day.
Yeah.
And then I stopped. But for a while, it's like, oh, I could be out of the house for half an hour and see something that's not the inside of these four walls. I'm going to look forward to that every day.
Your perspective sort of shifts.
Yeah.
And you pick up things that you never, I think a lot of people picked up some COVID hobbies or habits.
Yeah.
And was that one of the, I guess, you said you had a newborn just at the start of COVID?
Yeah, in May of 2020.
And was that, what would have been kind of the toughest thing for you mentally? Obviously, having a newborn at the start of COVID is pretty tough, but you were saying that the comedy aspect, there was probably other things as well. What did you find probably the toughest?
Same thing a lot of people found the toughest, I think, which is not knowing when it would end. Sort of seeing day to day that there aren't really any encouraging signs to think that tomorrow is the day this ends. And, I still don't know that there's one moment when things quote unquote ended. We sort of thought, just wait until this passes, but nothing passes. Just wait until there's a vaccine. Great, but then we have to get it. And now once we're fully vaccinated, well, but then the kids can't get vaccinated yet because it's not approved for kids. Okay, now the kids have it. Yeah, but then the baby can't get it yet because it's not approved for babies. Now he has it. Why are we still not going out in public? What's going on? And then finally, what really kind of did it was that all 5 of us got COVID in June of 2022. And, we got it, we recovered. And then all of a sudden I realized later that month as I'm walking down the street, I'm like, I've stopped holding my breath when people walk past me on the street. Yeah. And I feel like I've got this superpower now that I cannot be infected, at least for a couple months.
Yeah.
And that sort of started to change the mindset of, coming out of this.
Sure.
But yeah, that was
it was kind
challenging.
It was a fever dream, I think. I think people are still mentally recovering from the whole thing. There's a trauma kind of lingering.
My first real big speaking gig after COVID, I'm still wearing a mask for it, but I was there, and I started talking about the past, this is my first gig in a couple years, and I just started crying, like in front of this auditorium of people who were all sitting spaced out with their masks on, and like, wow, I did not expect that.
It just came out?
It just came out, and I just stop and be like, give me a minute.
Yeah. What was the emotion that was bringing that on?
I don't know. It was maybe, I want to say relief, but you don't cry from relief. I don't think I know my own emotions well enough to name it, other than the emotion was crying.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. It probably transports you back to maybe being a child or something, when when a child would just start crying for no reason. It just, I don't know, maybe something mentally switches, but
Yeah.
then you're trying to figure out where this is coming from.
Yeah.
But that's a fairly vulnerable place to be on in front of a crowd of people.
Well, no, it was a relief to be back because there were no
Mm,
crowds of people. There were no crowds of people for 2 years.
yeah.
There was nothing. All the stuff that I had lined up, thing after thing, got canceled. No one knew when anything could be rescheduled for. I couldn't. At one point, it was like I can't imagine. I don't understand how we come out of this ever,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably too doom and gloom. Um, but it was unlike anything any of us have really lived through, and so it's
Sure.
no one knew how it was going to end.
Yeah, it was kind of a first, I think, for everyone.
Hmm.
But there's always silver linings. A lot of good came out of it
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
But and I guess once you returned to the kind of some sort of normality in terms of your hobbies, your space of comedy and everything, what did that look like when everything felt like it was back to some degree?
See, nothing came back all at once.
Yeah.
It's always in fits and starts. There'd be some gig that
Mm-hmm.
part of the thing with comedy is that it's unless you're a full-time working road comic or
Yeah.
something where you have a gig 50 weeks a year, 50 weekends a year, and you're just going city to city and you're a headliner or something like that. Unless you're that type of person, it's all so unpredictable and gig based
Mm-hmm.
that there's no normal to get back to.
Okay.
Like every gig is a gig. Every gig is an individual thing that someone has reached out to you randomly or that you've gotten through some other thing. It's not that it repeats.
Mm-hmm.
Some things might repeat maybe, but the general rule is, if someone asks you to go and perform at this thing in this place, they're asking you to do this one time.
Sure.
And so the difference between pre and post pandemic is really more in the number of those, but it's not like, even before the pandemic, I would have times where I would have 3 gigs in a weekend, and then for the next 2 months, nothing. It
Okay.
just always happens like that.
Sure.
Or it would have like a big spread of nothing, then I get some great thing and then a second great thing that's on the same day at the same time. Like, why can't you guys just spread out?
Yeah. So that's where the word, I guess, gig really comes to form. It really stands out. Then you're like, okay, that's, some people throw that word gig out there kind of loosely, but the meaning of it is, I have this gig. I don't know if I'll have another one.
Right.
It's very temporary.
Yeah.
And it's not a given.
I mean, I've performed a lot of places, but I haven't performed a lot of places twice.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I suck. Maybe that's it. Maybe no one's telling me. But no, it's also more like if you're hired to do a comedy show at this university, to get hired to do another, they're not going to have you come back next month to do the same show. They've just seen you. Next year, it's going to be a completely different group of students who do the hiring. And so there've been a couple places where I think Florida International University I've been to 3 times, and I feel like there are a couple other universities where it's been, with 5 or 6 years or something between the shows. But that's the exception rather than the rule.
Okay. Sure. And what's been your favorite sort of, I guess, venue or place to perform?
I feel like, and they say that the comedians ought to be able to perform in front of any audience, but honestly, the best audience is a softball audience. The best audience is an audience that is very much like you. And so I like performing at science conferences.
Okay.
Those are great because people spend all day sitting in serious talks, and then you get to be the one thing that comes in at night where they have wine and break that. And so they are ready to just appreciate whatever you can give them.
Sure.
So, and if you can mention science, then they, all the more. So that's my favorite type of gig, I think.
Okay.
I presented at like an astronomy conference and all kinds of different scientific conferences that are not my genre.
Sure.
They'll often say like, "Oh, you can attend any of the talks that you want." I'm like, "Oh, I don't. I don't think so."
Yeah.
Is that something at Baylor College of Medicine a couple years ago? Great place, very nice of them to invite me. They asked if I could sit in on the entire 2-day conference. I did. Yay! But at the same time, I'm thinking like, I'm only here in Texas for 2 days. There's a really cool like zoo down the street. There's a park down the street. There's all kinds of interesting touristy things I could be seeing instead of listening to a seminar that's not really relevant to me. But I'll do it if you want me to. So yeah, I like the scientific conference audience or universities, things like that.
Yeah. And I guess it gives you a chance, well, it's for them to unwind, so you know that they're going to be welcoming of the material, but it gives you a chance to let people appreciate maybe scientific or kind of nerdy humor as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as we said before, it can be risky if you're going to throw that out from the start to maybe a rowdy crowd who's in a bar to have some sort of a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's not always going to stick. But I guess, so it's those types of gigs where that sort of scientific humor or communicating science in a kind of a funny way, that's where that lands the most.
Those are the easiest for me. I mean, some people would rather have a challenge all the time. People who really encourage themselves to grow as comedians. But honestly, if you ask me what type of crowd I'd like to go in front of, I wouldn't say, give me the most hostile crowd you can find. I would say, I want to go where I can kind of feel like it's going to go well.
Yeah, that's fair. But I'm sure, is there any times that you have that you're like, let's just throw me in front of a hostile crowd just for exposure therapy, or
I mean,
the deep end?
It's more like saying yes to gigs where I have no idea what the gig is going to be like. Like there's some gigs going into it, I feel like this is probably going to go well. And there's some gigs going into it, I feel like I really don't know how this is going to go. I don't know what this place is. I don't know. I'm on Saturday, I'm doing a storytelling show in, I don't even remember the name of it because it's not a bar. It's like a condo.
Okay.
It's a condo complex or something for senior citizens. I don't actually know anything else about the show. I know that I trust the person who asked me to be in the show, but I don't know what to expect. I don't know if I might get there and they've got a lovely little stage in a room that's meant for this sort of thing and 100 appreciative people in chairs, or I might get there and they have no microphone and it's just a bunch, like 3 people milling around coffee and no one knows what to do. I don't know what to expect. So that kind of chance, I think most comedians take that all the time when you agree to do gigs at some place you've never been. If it's a theater, if it's a comedy club, it's probably set up in a way to be conducive to comedy. If it's something else, I've done things like I performed at an after prom, a high school after prom at 1 a.m. I performed on a boat for the Christmas party of workman's comp administrators.
Very specific.
It was really specific. Well, it was actually very bad because right before we're about to go, I figured like 150 people on this boat, going to be a captive audience. Right before the boat's about to leave, it's a Baltimore Inner Harbor dinner cruise. The captain got on the walkie-talkie or the public address system and said, "We hear there are reports of bad weather, so for safety, the boat's not actually going to go anywhere." And all the people looked at each other and they're like, "You want to just leave?" And they all just left the boat. And the only people who stayed on the boat were the people that like I had been talking to during the cocktail hour beforehand and felt bad about leaving.
Okay.
So this, show for a giant office of people on a boat turned out to be me and 10 people who were really just kind of like giving this side eye to how soon can we get off the boat? So our friends are all in the Inner Harbor having a great time, having dinner somewhere. We're just kind of
their sympathy stay.
Yeah. So, you never know how things are going to go. I performed in someone's living room once. There's at I think it was a 5th grade graduation, and at a restaurant in Gaithersburg for someone's birthday. it's all super random. And sometimes you drive away from those saying, that went really well. That was fun. And sometimes you drive away from those saying, well, that wasn't good.
I'm
But
not doing that again.
not doing that well. But that's the thing. There's never an again. It's that's done.
It's just like randomized events.
Yeah, randomized event. And after a while, you learn to, like, when someone's planning an event, if it's an event that doesn't usually have comedy, you learn to sort of chat with them in advance and tell them the things that are going to make it go well. Like, you should have a microphone. It should be audible. Ideally, you should have people in seats facing the microphone. Comedy works a lot better when it's more like a theater setup and less like comedy happening in the corner while people have dinner. Because a lot of people are used to booking a musician or something, and you can play in a band in the background while people eat their dinner. Comedy doesn't work in the background, because then people are chatting, and then the other people think, oh, we're not really supposed to be listening, what's going on? Like, it's got to be, hey, cocktail hour is done, or whatever, sit, watch this. And so, at least now when I'm talking to people who are planning things, I can sort of give them those tips, and usually that works out.
Give them like the simple non-negotiables or the formula, basically. Just.
I mean, I'm not confident enough to call them non-negotiables.
No, but
they'll still go and fail at something. But at least I tell them, like, it's going to be a lot better if you
make
can
it
do
easier
this
for everyone if you just do these few simple steps.
The show's the same exact material presented the exact same way is gonna land a lot better if you set up the show in a way where people feel like they're watching a show and not just hearing a background conversation.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you do notice that. I don't know if I've seen it with comedy before at an event where it's happening in the corner, but you do see it with bands and stuff or other sort of performances, and it's just, it doesn't really work. It's scattered.
Yeah, not when you have to listen to the words, not when it relies on you listening to the words.
Yeah.
I did a gig at Stony Brook University in New York, and I got up on stage, and it's all these graduate students, and they're there, and there's a buffet dinner, and they're just sort of eating and talking, and the guy's like, okay, go ahead. I'm like, could you get everyone's attention or something? Like, are they going to watch the show? How's this working? And he goes, that's your job, man. I'm like, great. I flew here to do this, and I'm trying to get people's attention, but the microphone's not loud enough in this very, very large auditorium, and people don't know that there's something to listen to. They're over at the dinner station talking. There's music too.
And then it probably sounds like you're distracting them from something else. Like,
right.
Who's this guy trying to get my attention?
Right, exactly. And then, in time, like, a dozen students hear what's going on and come over to listen. But, it would have made a big difference if they'd said, okay, this time is dinner. This time, come on over to the seats.
Yeah. Okay. Whew. Yeah. There's so many different dynamics that you can encounter, I guess.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that, but there's different types of venues, there's different types of companies that will ask you to come along. So there's a lot of variables.
I never thought about it that much until it started going poorly. I mean, you experience enough times where you get there and someone says, oh, we didn't get a microphone, but you don't need one. And you're like, no, a microphone makes a big qualitative difference. It feels more performance-y.
Sure.
It gives people less permission to talk to each other.
Yep.
It means you don't have to shout. You can say quiet things and they can hear you. It just makes it feel a lot better and to the audience. I had a gig once at a high school in New York where they didn't get a microphone, and it was in a gym. It was in this giant gymnasium with a basketball clinic going on the other side of this curtain. And they said, well, we didn't get a microphone, but you can shout, right? For 45 minutes to these 400 high school students. So 45, it had to be shouted because of the basketball clinic. And, you can't do the same things that you can when you got a microphone.
Yeah. And it psychologically as well, it commands presence and assertion. I think it's assertive when you have a microphone.
Yeah.
People will automatically say, okay, this person has something to say. We need to show attention or whatever.
It sort of gives you the authority as the one speaking in the room. And I tell my students also that as the comedian performing, people are looking at you to be the most observant person in the room, which is why you've got to sort of, it means a lot of things. One is if something in the room happens that's unexpected, you should react to it. Like if you're on stage and something huge falls over in the back of the room, makes a loud crash, and you just keep going, everyone in the room is thinking, did he not notice the crash? If there's something unique about you that everyone notices right away and you don't call it out, everyone in the audience is thinking, you go on stage and you've got one leg and you never mention it, everyone's thinking like, is he going to talk about the leg? Like you can't be the last person to realize something.
Sure.
When I did a show once in New Jersey where I had this joke I don't do anymore, it's not that funny, it was about tofurkey, this fake tofu turkey stuff.
Okay.
And the comedian who performed right before me also had a joke about tofurkey, turns out. Different joke about tofurkey, just coincidence.
Very specific.
Very specific, but I didn't know that he had a joke about it because during his set, I had to go out to my car to get something. And when I came back, then it's my turn. I get up and I say, you guys heard of this thing, tofurkey? And everyone's giving me this look like, yes, we just talked. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And later someone said, yeah, the guy before you just talked about tofurkey also. And then you come out and you're like, have you heard of it? And that's the worst feeling as a comedian, when you're the last one in the room to realize something and everyone else realizes something.
They were probably thinking, where's he going with this? Is there a hook here? Is there, because surely he knows.
Yeah.
What's his bit? What's this bit that he's trying to, where's the punchline?
And they're completely distracted from whatever else I was saying, because they're thinking like, we just talked about it. It would be like if I got on stage and I said something like, you guys wear pants. Have you heard of pants? Which if I'm doing some bit where I'm some guy's never heard of pants, okay, great. But if instead I'm actually genuinely like, oh, I saw this thing that was like pants and you wear them, they would all be wondering like, why the heck is he unfamiliar with pants?
Yeah. I'd say your heart probably sinks. No, but your heart probably sinks at the end, like when someone explained to you that the previous guy had spoken about this. You're like, oh no.
Yeah. So that's another thing I tell the students is like, watch everything that comes before you if you can. So if I'm someplace and they've got like a couple speakers and then me or something, I'll sit through the other speakers, because if there's something interesting that happens, I want to be able to make a joke about it. And people appreciate it so much more if you're making a joke about something that just happened. Or if they say something that, that's related to something I'm going to say, I want to acknowledge it and say, oh, so-and-so was just talking about this. Well,
observational comedy.
Observational comedy, but also just being, not being the ignorant person who just sort of flew in to do his set and then left.
Yeah.
You're in the room with them. You're experiencing the same things.
So you're paying attention to what's happening. And like you said, if someone walks on stage and they're missing a leg or whatever,
usually they walk, exactly.
Usually there'll be self-deprecation that comes in there to say, oh, have you noticed? They'll make a joke about it. And that breaks the ice. That gets people off to a good start. And same with, you said, if something falls over, you can bring that into your bit. You can make a bit out of it. You can latch onto it.
Or even not to make a bit out of it, but even to just say something about it, just to acknowledge that it happened. Even if you're just saying like, what was that? Hope everyone's okay, or something, as opposed to just simply going through your material.
Just going through run-of-the-mill material and not kind of going off course.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like that's, those are two completely different skills. Like writing comedy and speaking it on stage is one thing, and reacting live to things is another. And I talked to someone once who does improv, and he said that he thinks improv is really easy and stand-up is hard, because in improv you have other people on stage to help you. And I was telling him, actually, I think stand-up is easier and improv is hard, because in stand-up you know what you're going to say, and improv you don't. So different skill sets.
Sure, yeah, because I guess there's people who are really good at writing jokes and then delivering those jokes. They might be scared to do the improv, but then, as you said, an improv person might be scared to do the rehearsed jokes. So it's kind of two different dualities or whatever. Yeah. Have you tried it? Have you done improv?
Yeah. I was in an improv group in grad school for about 3 years. A lot of fun. Like, I think if I had infinite time, it's something that I would add.
Yeah.
I would definitely do it again. It's so much fun to do it. You're always thinking, because you have to be always thinking. They tell you play at the top of your intelligence, and so you're always constantly analyzing things and what can I do here with this? And I don't know if I was any good at it or not, but it was so much fun to do, and you have a lot of fun with other people that are in your group with you. Maybe someday when my kids are in college, I'll start doing it again or something.
It's ballsy, I think, improv, because it's thinking on the spot, thinking of quick thing, and it's, I guess, situational, and you have to bring situational and observational comedy into it as well.
That's part of it, but then there's also all kinds of things. I never even thought about being an improv until I was in it, and we started talking about the theories of it. Keeping the game going in the scene and escalating the game and escalating the tension and making references to other things that happened previously, and basically your job is to make everybody else around you as funny as possible. Your job is to serve them opportunities to be funny. That's when it works the best, not when each person is thinking, what jokes can I make? Keeping everything that's in the scene. Yes and is sort of the classic improv thing, that when someone says something, it's there, it's in the scene. So if someone says, I'm the Queen of England, you can't say, no, you're not the Queen of England. The Queen of England is now in the scene. And
you keep piggybacking off that and moving on.
Yep.
To the,
Yeah. And that's just sort of like the basics of improv, but things I never thought about until I did improv, and people are, and we would always analyze the scenes we did afterwards. Just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I've gone to a few improv shows with kind of some veterans, but then some amateurs and stuff. But it's just, I'm always amazed, and it takes a lot of balls to get up there and do it in the moment, especially in that format. It's a very enjoyable form of comedy to watch.
Watching really good improv is so much fun. In fact, I'm currently looking for good improv shows in DC to bring my daughter to, because I think she wants to see some good ones. And there are plenty.
Yeah,
there are plenty of good. Yeah, there's a group that does an improvised musical. That takes a special skill. I don't do that. But there's someone with a keyboard, and they're making up songs on the spot, and
it's amazing.
Yeah.
That brings it to kind of another level. But I'd love to see the skill involved in that.
There is even a science improv comedy group in DC.
Okay.
The guy that I know, Tom DiLiberto, he was a scientist at the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. I think he lost his job there last year.
Okay.
But he also does a lot of comedy, and he's in this group, and I keep meaning to reach out to him. And
okay.
But then once you're in an improv group, it takes a lot of practice, and I've got the 3 kids, and I can't go off all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of commitment, I'd say, and repetition.
Yeah.
You said that, is it next weekend, or where are we now? Yeah, this weekend coming, you said you're doing a storytelling gig?
So storytelling is different from stand-up in many ways, and I think after many years of doing both, I think I've found that I like storytelling even more than stand-up.
Okay.
So storytelling shows, like in groups like The Moth, where people will tell a 5-minute, 10-minute true story about something that happened to them. A lot of them are funny. They're not always funny, but they're great for the reason that all nonfiction is great. It's something true, told by the person that it happened to, and it's stand-up. You need to have a punchline every 10-15 seconds. In a storytelling show, you can build up a situation that's going to get really funny, but it doesn't have to be funny while it's building. And in stand-up, I tell my students, you're allowed to lie. You can tell people all kinds of crazy things. I had a joke about my Russian grandparents. My grandparents aren't Russian. So
you can embellish, you can twist it.
But in a storytelling show, you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be, and obviously you don't, if you're telling a story about what happened when you were 10, you can't recount exactly what everyone said to everyone, but it's got to be at least emotionally true.
Okay.
And so truth to the best of your recollection. So that's what that show is. And getting a story ready for the stage is kind of like getting a stand-up bit ready for the stage, except that a story is often a lot longer. And so in stand-up, my jokes are, I'd say 30 seconds to 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
Each. A story is more like 10. And there's a lot of memorizing, there's a lot of workshopping and working on it, but then you can also change things a little bit on the fly. You can react to the audience. You can make extra comments.
So you can go off course and you can go on tangents a little bit.
Yeah, but planned ideally, because they really do have time restrictions.
Yeah, so just have a little room for error, maybe.
Or at least in the way that you deliver it. Because I think for some people, the way that they prepare a story is to write it out word for word, memorize it word for word, and then deliver that as naturally as they can. And for many people, that comes off sounding natural. I found that when I do that, I sound like I'm reciting something.
Like a robot, because you're trying to memorize each individual word as opposed to, I guess, a bullet point where you just elaborate on that.
That's what I write down. I write down bullet points to make sure that I remember those things. And by the end, if I tell the same story twice, I probably will say 96% of the words the same both times, but not 100%. And I'm not wedded to, all of the exact wording. But that's just my process. Some people don't do that. Some people write it down verbatim, and that works for them.
Yeah, it's different. I guess different personalities or different. Yeah, there's a lot of different variables that can make it work for you in different ways. And is the essence of the story is always to inject humor in there, or I guess there might be poignancy and motivation?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I try to put humor in most of my stories, if not all. Humor is a cheat. It's a way to make people think they like something a lot because they laughed.
Yeah.
I think I do try to also put in things that are not humor. I have some stories that have more serious moments to them. The one I'm telling this weekend is about the first Christmas gift that I got my wife back when. I'm not going to tell the whole story now, but basically it was how I was never a great gift giver until and I made a mistake in the gift that I got her. But so there are funny moments to it, but then it ends with the fact that now we're married and have kids, and with a story you can do that. With stand up, people are going to be wondering where the punchline is on every line.
They're expecting that funny moment at the end, but with storytelling you can weave in and out of, I guess, something serious. You can come back around to a nice message at the end or a bit of humor. But I think humor can be a very good way to deliver serious topics as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're bringing people along in a humorous, friendly way, but you're delivering a serious message. I think it's an effective way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And storytelling shows lately have been popular. Stand-up open mic shows where there's no barrier to entry. You might get 10 people coming, you might get 50, you might get 0. Some of these storytelling shows will have just like a Monday night show, and they'll have 400 people show up.
Okay.
And I had my students ask me once, like, is it a really big audience? That must be really hard. And I tell them, no, a really big audience is easy. A really small audience is hard.
Yeah. Is it because do you feel safe in a big crowd, or is it the psychology of you can see those specific 10 people in front of you, so you know that they're expecting something
not
from
really
you?
either. It's more like just the size of the reaction.
Okay.
Little things get a much bigger reaction in a big crowd. The one time in 2006, I got to perform for 5 minutes in front of a crowd of 2,000 people.
Nice.
At the Warner Theater in DC. I won a radio contest and got to do 5 minutes at the beginning of somebody else's show. And those 5 minutes felt amazing because every little thing, when 2,000 people are laughing, it was like, what is this? How can I get this back? And it's been 20 years, I've never gotten that back. But yeah, a big audience is so much easier than a few, because people laugh because people around them laugh. And when there are a few people around them, there's less laughing.
Sure. Yeah. If you have like 10 people, one might find it funny, but it's not enough, I guess, to be contagious.
Yeah.
It's like psychologically, I guess, if you've 4 or 5 people around you and someone says something and your initial instinct isn't to find it funny, but other people, you're like, well, there's other humans around me that find this funny.
Yeah.
And it makes you,
Which is another reason why live theater is so great. Imagine watching a show in a theater, laughing out loud, and then imagine watching the same thing on YouTube at home by yourself. You're not going to laugh out loud.
No. Internally, you're like, oh, that's funny, but you just have a deadpan face.
Right. I mean, I watch things streaming all the time alone. I can't remember the last time I actually laughed out loud at something, not because there weren't funny things, but you just don't do that when you're alone. And you don't do that when there aren't that many people. But when you've got a big group and it's out, the tension is higher and the laughter is contagious and it just works a lot better.
Sure. 2,000 people, that's... What did it feel like initially when you were told that you were going to perform? Was it nerves? Was it excitement? I guess.
So at first it was excitement. Then I got to the theater and they walked me backstage and they had me meet the other comedians and I'm so excited. And they said, all right, so the show starts at 8. You're going to perform at 7:55. I'm like, this is another example of like setup of a show. I'm like, 7:55, when people are just getting into their seats. Like the house lights are still up. People are finding their seats. They're talking because the show starts at 8. They're not going to stop and listen to someone at 7:55. This is going to go really badly for me. Like what they wanted, I'm assuming, is just sort of squeeze in the guy who won the radio contest and get him out of the way so that people can see the people they paid to see. Understandable. But when I told that to the other comedians backstage, the ones who were actually there to perform for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, they got it right away. They're like, oh, that's a terrible setup. People are going to be talking, not because they're rude, but because they don't think there's a show yet.
Yeah.
And the house lights are on. So the comedians actually went to the person running the show and said, could you put him at 8 o'clock instead of 7:55? Like, wait till the show starts, not before the show starts. And, you know, they made that change for me, which was really nice. And again, it was just 5 minutes, but it was...
Made a difference.
Oh, it made a huge difference. Yeah, the lights went down, the show is starting, and then people know they're watching a show, as opposed to, what's this guy saying in the microphone while I'm trying to find my seat?
Yeah, lights are still on. People are distracted.
Yeah, if I were going into a theater at 7:55 for an 8 o'clock show and there's someone on stage, I would still be doing what I need to find my seat and talking as much as I need to find my seat. It's just, you know, psychologically different from the lights are down now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you've got it's all the verbal and visual auditory cues that say, okay, the show is starting.
Yeah.
I need to be attentive here.
Yeah.
But I'd say initially that probably throws you to a bit of a panic. You're like, I'm going to be performing. I'm not going to be at my best. I'm going to be distracted. Everyone else is going to be distracted.
Yeah. That could have gone terribly instead of being a really nice memory.
Yeah. Okay. Who was the act that you were opening for?
So initially I was told it was Dane Cook, but it turned out it was the comedians of Dane Cook's Tourgasm, which I guess is the name of his tour.
Okay.
They call it Dane Cook's Tourgasm. Dane Cook is not there. But it's the other guys. I remember 2 of the 3 names, Jay Moore and Gary Gulman. I forget the third person. And they're all great. They're all really good. Gary Gulman, I love his comedy. He's got this whole bit that I sometimes play for my students about how he hates grapefruits but loves grapes. And I play this for them for 5 minutes. They're like, listen, you can do 5 minutes about just hating grapefruits and loving grapes.
Yep.
It's clean. It's funny. It's one of those jokes that works because it's you putting a lot of seriousness and a lot of emotion into something that's innocuous and meaningless like fruit.
Yeah, and it's you were saying it's clean. That's another thing. Some people think that they need to be crude or crass to get humor across, but I think the real skill is finding humor in mundane, clean things that don't have any profanities or whatever.
I mean, just logistically as a comedian, if you can also perform clean, there are more places you can perform.
Sure.
If I had no clean material, I couldn't be at that 5th grade graduation party in someone's living room in Virginia.
Yeah.
But so there's nothing against, crudity. And I certainly swear on stage sometimes, but I tell my students this also, like you have to say what sounds natural coming out of you.
Mm.
I'm not someone that it sounds natural for me to curse a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can curse sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but not a lot. If I'm up there and cursing every other word, it's going to sound like I'm putting it on. And so you've got to know yourself well enough to know what sounds like you trying to be someone you're not versus you speaking naturally.
Yeah, because people will pick up on that as well.
Yeah, they'll know that you're kind of, and a lot of comedians do that. They kind of, I've certainly fell into this trap too. When things aren't going well,
Mm-hmm.
you swear more. You see it all the time. You just throw in a swear word here and there.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the audience can tell,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he's throwing in more swear words because it's not going well. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't actually help, but it's a nervous response. I see my students do it sometimes too. And I tell them there's nothing wrong with swearing. Swear all you want.
Mm-hmm.
But just know that it might not serve you well if you're someone that doesn't sound natural coming out of.
You might do the contrary. And I guess when things aren't going well and you swear, that's kind of like a retaliation. You're kind of projecting your frustrations, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm.
And people can tell. And I also tell them, like, if people don't laugh at a joke,
Mm-hmm.
just keep going. Like, it doesn't mean they didn't like it. People might be smiling. You can't hear smiling.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing you can do is like stop and say that didn't work. And maybe you can do that once if you're making a new joke about how it didn't work.
You might get a few laughs, but
not more than once.
Yeah.
Like after the second or third time saying, oh, some of these are new.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these jokes are just for me, I guess, or whatever. People are going to stop thinking that you're actually responding
Mm-hmm.
and kind of chuckling about it, and they're going to think that you're getting legitimately frustrated. They need to think that you're in control the whole time.
Yeah.
And same with storytelling. Storytelling, there's this saying, there's no crying in storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Not because you can't tell emotionally sad things on stage, but because you can't, to tell a story, it's got to be emotionally distant enough from you that the audience doesn't worry about you. You can tell something very emotionally important to you, and you should. But if it's so emotionally important that you're not objective and you're still working through it yourself and the audience can tell, they're going to be worried about you. And they're going to think like, what evil producer made this person get on stage and talk about their mother's death when they're clearly not over it?
Yeah, they're still going through something, and that's manifesting in their body language or their facial expressions or the way they're speaking.
And that makes the audience uncomfortable because the audience thinks that they need to help you because you're no longer in control.
Oh, that was one of the lights went off. Let me just have a quick look.
Okay, I'm going to grab a water.
Yeah, sure.
That. Okay,
but you're saying that that shines through to the audience that this person shouldn't be up here.
Yeah,
at this moment, like they're going through something. We can pick up on it, and it's not right.
Yeah, like when I accidentally cried right after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That was a moment I would rather have not had
Mm-hmm.
because the audience is worried that I might not be okay to be there.
Sure. And that shines through. Ooh.
Book drop.
Yeah. Well, they did warn us that books would fall. So, but yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that before. Where there's another level, there's another depth with how you deliver things, and you're saying that's more important in storytelling, to have that distance.
I mean, I've heard the saying about storytelling. That doesn't mean it's not true in stand-up. It's just that you don't really see people crying too much in stand-up, but you do see people who are not in control, and that's scary to the audience.
Sure.
I've seen people drink too much before getting on stage, and then the audience, they might be very funny, but then the audience, once again, you don't want them to know something where you're the last person in the room to know it. And if they know this person is very drunk and you don't seem to know it, then they know something you don't know, and that shifts the dynamic in the wrong way.
Gotcha. Okay.
Plus, when you're drunk on stage, you can't remember all the things that you intended to remember. You can't say them with the nuances that you intend to say.
It can serve its purpose, I think, for a short amount of time, but then you know, the initial, I guess, novelty when people are seeing someone drunk on stage and they're saying some funny things, but you start to double down and it just, yeah, you start to go a bit south.
Yeah.
But and oh yeah, to go back to the, I guess, the story, or sorry, the communicating science in a humorous way was the gentleman who I couldn't remember his name, Chuck Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Nice or Nice?
I think it's nice, but
Nice, Chuck Nice.
I know.
Yes,
someone was just talking to me about him.
He's a regular collaborator with Neil
Yeah.
deGrasse Tyson on Star Talk. So apologies for forgetting his name, but I find that really, that was one of the examples I was saying at the start. Communicating science in a funny way is him and Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I'm trying to remember why. There's something where his name came up recently because there's someone that we both know, or we both performed in the same. I have to check my email for Chuck Nice.
Sure. But no, I enjoy watching the two of them on Star Talk channel, because it's just two friends talking shit or whatever, but then they can articulate these very complex concepts in astrophysics, in a funny way. They start doing funny voices and just saying funny quips, but it's a really engaging way for you to learn, because not everyone's going to want to sit there and just look at someone speak seriously about that. Serves its own purpose in other avenues, but I think it's a really interesting intersection.
And it also humanizes scientists.
Yeah, it does.
And that's really important too. People make it to all the way through school, having met many science teachers, but having never met a scientist. And I think for a lot of people who don't grow up around scientists, scientist is this mythical figure like wizard.
Sure.
That's you hear that they exist, but you've never met one, and so the idea that it's someone trustworthy, or the idea that it's someone you could become, that's just kind of out there. And so the more scientists can show people that we're human beings, who can joke about things, the better for science.
Yeah, because I guess in media, as a kid, when you're watching movies and shows, it's kind of like this unattainable person on a pedestal or something. Or a mythical figure in a way.
Or, it's, in some cases it's on a pedestal, but in other cases they're not someone to envy. There's someone who's a little wacky, a little out there. If you do a Google image search for scientist, the whole first page is insane, balding, elderly, white male chemists.
So it's just like a caricature of some sort of Einstein-ish figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's this great test called the Draw Scientist test. This researcher, D.W. Chambers in Australia in 1983, he asked kids to draw scientists, and he wrote about what they drew. He gave them no other prompts, just draw scientist. And he wrote about how kids were always drawing, people with people in a lab coat, with balding, beard, bubbling green beaker of liquid. And he even said that, in most of the drawings, kids had signs on the walls of the lab that said things like, keep out, top secret, do not enter. There's this implication that science is not for you. Science is something restrictive. And they've built on that now, where sometimes teachers now will ask students to draw a scientist, then they'll have them meet some scientists and then draw a scientist again. And even just meeting scientists for a couple hours, kids start drawing like normal human women, things that they would not have drawn beforehand. They go from balding guy in a lab coat with green beaker to just a normal looking, friendly human being who's often a woman.
Yeah. So it's closing that gap in terms of what the idea in their head is.
Yeah.
And this barrier to entry.
And often all it takes is just a brief meeting of a scientist, because you might never have interacted with one before.
Yeah. Because a lot of the times they can just come across as unassuming people.
Yeah. Well, they come across, it's more that they don't come across, it's that you just don't encounter them. Again, I'm lucky. I grew up meeting, knowing scientists. My mother's a scientist, but there are plenty of people who've never met a scientist, and so just having some interaction, or what they do on Star Talk, where scientists show themselves to be real people. That's all really important for the public image of scientists, and therefore of science.
Yeah. Yeah. it reduces the, I guess, the barrier or the distance with what people think is a scientist and what the reality is. And also it kind of lifts up that barrier. Okay, that camera, is that camera or this one? That one's still going. I've had issues with that one before. We can wrap it up in a minute because we've actually been going for over an hour.
Okay. I think my parking ends in about 20 minutes.
That's okay. But yeah, no, that was kind of the cue the last podcast I did. It was the camera that was facing me that went off. But yeah, no, it's been a great chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming. And it's, as I said, I just like to sit down with people and just have a nice friendly chat and just see where it goes. There's no agenda to this at all. It's just to speak with interesting people from different backgrounds and just see what comes of it. Yeah, there's no structure or rhythms, but I like that. I like to. My previous guest, we talked about this. It's just go on tangents, just whatever way. It doesn't matter if you go into another area. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. So, but no, it's been great. It's been great. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we can do it again.
Yeah,
someday.
Let me know.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's a lot of other areas to get into. We didn't really get into the pinball aspect of things.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was kind of hinting that maybe we could film this at a pinball place, and my ulterior motive was that just being allowed to go play pinball.
Well, we could do another episode on.
There we go.
Pinball themed episode. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that one's gone. Okay, well, this equipment wants us to finish up.
Guess that's it.